Well, good afternoon, and welcome back to the continuation of the Symposium on Ancient Greece. It's been a delightful morning here with a variety of presentations, and after Dr. Hawkins' presentation here, we have other opportunities tomorrow in the evening, and then on Wednesday in the afternoon as well as the evening for the closure in the North Gym of McAfee building, where we will have music, dance, and a presentation. So hope to see you there. And thanks for coming to all, and thank you for presenting. Dr. Wabi.
Thank you. Welcome to this session, a distinguished session of futuristic look through ancient lenses. And we have a distinguished speaker as well. The first time I met with Dr. Hawkins was the first year I came here. They had 7 Habits of Successful People or something like that. And he was one of the speakers. And I appreciated what he has to tell us and benefited of that. And over the years, our friendship continued. And I guess the best way to introduce him is to ask the chair to introduce him. So, Dr. Deb Woodley, please, School of Technology.
My speaking teacher voice. I think
This is for taping.
To record you for posterity.
I'd like to introduce Thomas Hawkins, and he is a perfect person to talk about this particular topic. And this topic is near and dear to the School of Technology. We often have discussions about, does technology shape society or does society shape technology? Is technology inherently good? Is it inherently bad? And so he's bringing another perspective to that. Does technology shape humans or do humans shape technology? So welcome.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yes, I have it on. As Dr. Woodley said, I teach in the School of Technology, and I wanted to start with showing you a clip. We're going to start with not the ancient part, but the future part, and hopefully this will work. If not, I'll just tell you what it says. Well, it disappeared.
It's streaming, but it's downloading, but it's not streaming. So I think you click on it.
Yeah. Oh, there it was.
I think one click.
He may not be flying a plane, but Zach Walter considers himself a
Can you hear it?
pilot. What is he maneuvering? An $8 million bionic leg. And where is he going?
Well, that won't help.
Flight climb up the stairs of Chicago's Willis Tower, one of the world's tallest skyscrapers.
And so I've been training for a couple of months now, on and off, trying to get out to the gym a couple of times a week. I've been training on it's like a small escalator. It's a stair treadmill.
The 31-year-old amputee is a research subject, helping to test a trailblazing prosthetic leg, controlled by his thoughts and maneuvered through the use of electrodes and engineering.
It puts energy in when I'm walking. It puts energy into that, whereas my normal prosthetic is dumb per se and doesn't respond or react to me.
The bionic leg is the result of a partnership between the Department of Defense and several universities. Experts say most prosthetics are glorified wooden legs, but this is a step beyond state-of-the-art.
Now, when he just thinks about moving his ankle, his hamstring moves, and we're able to tell the prosthesis how to move appropriately.
On Sunday, Walter will participate in the Skyrise Chicago Climb, a fundraiser for the Rehabilitation Institute. Researchers will be cheering him on while they monitor the prosthetic's performance. Safety is a top priority. If a bionic hand fails, someone drops a glass of water. If a bionic leg fails, someone falls downstairs. This will be the first test in the public eye, and if it goes well, bionic prostheses could hit the market within a decade. Nia Hawkins, Associated Press.
Just a disclaimer, Nia Hawkins is no relation to me. What did you notice about the bionic leg? Anything? What controls it?
Wires running through it.
And it goes directly from his mind to his leg. So where does the mechanics stop and the person begin? Any of you remember the Olympics back in the summer? Something that was unusual this year. Do you remember who won the gold medal for the 400-meter race and the 400-meter relay? His name was Oscar, I wrote it down, Pistorius. What was unusual about him? He ran on blades. Yes, he ran on blades because he had prosthetic legs. So the gold medal in the Olympics goes to someone who has prosthetic legs because they're so wired into him. There's a new book. I did not tear this out of the library's books. I've already been asked that. But it's a review of a new book by Eric Topol called Creative Destruction of Medicine. And then it says How the Digital Revolution Will Create Better Healthcare is the subtitle. And the vision of the future of medicine, according to Eric Topol, who works at a research institute in California, the Scripps Translational Science Institute, is that we will all have implants in us that we will monitor with this, so that if we need to adjust anything that improves our blood pressure or corrects our diabetes or any other number of medical conditions we might have, we will be continuously monitoring that ourselves based on implants in us that are sent to then a little monitor that we carry so we can adjust what we want, which will, in their vision, make doctors irrelevant. The review says, don't hold your breath. But so that's the background of what I want to talk about are the interface between human beings and technology or machines. And I gave you a couple of examples, but back in 2007, Charles Higgins, who's at the University of Arizona, developed a little robot that was guided by the eyes of a moth. So just by looking at things, the moth's eyes could move the robot. And he wrote, by 2017 to 2022, people will be using hybrid computers. In other words, we'll have implants in our brain that are a combination of technology and living organic tissue. So where does the person stop and the technological machine, the wiring, begin? Or where does the machine stop and where does the organic living being begin? Just this year, Feinberg School of Medicine up in Northwestern, they've developed implants that they put in the brain that send signals directly to the muscles that bypass the spinal cord entirely. So the device uses signals from the brain to tell the muscles in the hand to move without that having to go through the neurons in the spinal cord. It's a multi-electrode array. It's implanted in a way that picks up the signals from about 100 neurons in the brain, and using those, it sends those through a computer that deciphers them and then instructs the muscles to move. And it promises to help people who've had a spinal cord injury recover a lot of the daily functions they use. So again, where does the technology stop? Where does the human person begin? What's the relationship between them? Also this year, a professor at Tel Aviv University developed a computerized cerebellum. Anyone know what the cerebellum does? It's one of the older parts of our brain, controls a lot of the basic functions. The living tissue was taken out and implanted in the brain was a small computerized cerebellum that mimics all the functions of the brain's cerebellum. And again, a technological system was used to replace the living tissue. So if you think about it again, what's human? What's a machine? Also this year, picking up things that are happening really with the pace of all this is accelerated, and it will continue to accelerate because we have so many people coming back from places like Afghanistan and Iraq who have lost limbs of one kind or another or brain injuries, and the Defense Department has unlimited resources to put into trying to develop prosthetics. But in Parley Cycles, it's in Boston, it's working with the Toyota Prius projects, and it's developed a bicycle helmet that picks up the neurotransmissions from the brain, sends them to a receiver, a wireless transmitter that's in the seat post, and that's used to automatically change the gears on the bicycle. So you no longer have to do this with your feet and that with your hand. You just have the helmet on and you think of a different gear you want in the bicycle, and that's sent directly from your brain to the bicycle gears, changes the gears. What's the relationship between being human and being a machine? Who's an extension of whom, or what's an extension of what? Where does one begin? Where does the other start? Now, traditionally, we have thought that human beings emerged because we have intelligence, we have consciousness, we have these cognitive capacities, and so we develop tools. But what if it's the other way around? What if it's the tools that cause us to be human? And what if the brain isn't the cause for our technology, our use of technique, but in fact, it's the technology, the technique, that creates the brain? One way of thinking about this is to say, perhaps the very essence of being human is to live by prosthetic supplementation. Almost all technology involves essentially externalizing some human capacity of thought or other ability. So from the very beginning, we have been, through technology, migrating skills from flesh and blood and mind into non-living matter. And that's what we're doing when we're creating a bionic leg or a bionic cerebellum or any of those things we had. What increasingly, if you think about this way, we're merging the two, the technology and the brain. A way of thinking about that is that humans may have a double origin, that the genesis of being human and the genesis of technology are really the same. Again, it's not that we became human and then we developed tools. It's the fact that in our evolution, we somehow developed the ability to use tools, and that, in fact, is what developed our brain capacity. So that maybe there's no human being apart from a technological being. We invented ourselves as a species when we invented tools. And we've continued to do that in increasingly sophisticated ways. So much so that we're merging at a point where the computer is actually implanted in us, or our limbs can be replaced by them and operated by them. among some anthropologists, one characteristic of human evolution is that somehow the tools in humanity seem to emerge simultaneously. And what we find are the flint chips. If you think about it, even that, the flint tool is a prosthetic, a movable organ. And somehow the internalization of mind and the externalization of tool may happen in that moment when hard flint and soft brain tissue come together. Language is a kind of technological prosthetic if you think about it. It's a way of externalizing. And you could say fire is the ultimate transformative piece we invented, which is what brings us to a Greek myth, Epimetheus and Prometheus. There's two versions of it. One's in Plato and others in Hesiod. Both of them are titans. And Epimetheus is charged with giving creatures their qualities. Is that more or less correct? Please? From Plato, yeah, that's the Plato one. I'm using the Plato one because it fits what I want to say better. He's charged with giving animals all their qualities. So, everything's born without any qualities, any essence, really, of its own. So, you give the tiger big teeth, you give the elephant huge size, you give the fox cunning, you give the bird the ability to fly, you give the horse speed. And so he's taken all these qualities out of his box and passing them out to various animals all over creation. The last being, he has to give something to, a quality that gives it its essence, are human beings. And he looks in his box, and there's nothing in it. He's given everything away. So what is he going to do? This epi means, before. I mean, he lacks forethought. He's afterthought. He passes everything out, and humans still don't have any essential quality. And the box is empty. He has nothing left to give. He forgets to save back any kind of quality for human beings. Essentially, we're totally defenseless, nakedless, characteristicless beings. There's some sort of default then in our origin. We have no essence. So, what happens? Again, according to the Protagoras version, Prometheus goes up. We know this part, don't we? He steals fire. He takes it from the chariot of the sun. He hides it in a fennel stalk, the little coal, and brings it down and gives it to humankind. And eventually, the other part of the story is, he's punished because he does this. He is chained to the rock. The birds come every day and pick his liver out, and it grows back every night. But what does Prometheus give us? What is the essence of fire? Fire is, in part, a technological tool. Once we discovered fire, we use it to cook. We use it to convert stone into metal. We use it to transform all kinds of things. Fire is essentially a technological tool. I know years ago when I took a course on British history, kind of the history of the Industrial Revolution, this author titled it, Prometheus Unbound. And the Promethean vision is a technological vision. So even the legend suggests that somehow the myth suggests that somehow what makes us human is that we are technological beings. That somehow there is a fusion between technique and humanity, that they go hand in hand. anthropogenesis and technogenesis are the same thing. That Prometheus, in giving us technique, gives us humanity at the same time. It's the quality we're given. So there's no human without the technological. And our current trajectory of merging these more and more is just a working out of something that's been there since the very inception. It's just more complicated. We've moved to a mechanical cerebellum instead of a flint tool. Sort of the merger of the flesh of our body with the hardness of non-living matter. We've been on that trajectory for 1 million years. And somehow human evolution and technological evolution are tied together. The more our technology evolves, it results in inevitable human evolution. You know, and the rest of the myth is, who marries, at least in that version, who marries Epimetheus is Pandora. And Pandora opens what? A box that contains all the ills of the world. So both what is gift is also punishment in a complicated way. So this merger of the technological and human is both gift, it gives us who we are, but there's a terrible cost to it. Now I want to contrast, I'm going beyond Greece here a little bit, contrast this to another myth, Sumerian myth, that also is about how humans get these qualities, but it does it in a different way. And it involves the god Enki, who along with An and Enlil are the high gods. And Enki is a god of wisdom. He's absolutely enthroned over Absu, chaos, but it's also the word for semen. It's interesting. He's the inventor of technique. And the other character in this Babylonian myth is Inanna, who we more apt to know as Ishtar. And in that myth, Inanna goes from her home city to visit Enki and his, and he's so impressed by her beauty and entranced by her, throws a great big party for her, and there's lots of beer. And he gets drunk. And while he's drunk, he decides to give her all his meh, Sumerian word that's not very easily transmittable. It's everything. It lists, in the myth, it lists like 100 of these meh he gives her. And some of it is crafts, like the ability to smelt copper or work gold. Some of it are human capacities and responses like deceit, kindness, love. Some of it is prostitution, and other of it are political skills and priesthood and deceit and heroism. All these are capabilities that Enki, the god of wisdom, while he's drunk, gives to Inanna. She puts him in her boat and starts to go back to her own city. Enki sobers up, realizes, oh my God, what have I done? And he sends one of the other gods to try to tip her boat over and spill all these and get them back, but he can't do it. That she takes all of them back to her home city and, of course, gives them to humankind. Now, what's interesting about these is if you think about the story of Enki and Inanna, and you think about Prometheus and Epimetheus, there's also a theme of technique. They're about how human beings get technology, how technique comes to humans. And they both share an element of deception. You know, in the Prometheus story, Prometheus, there's an element of deception, and he steals fire from the god. It's not given. And in this one, there's an element of deception too. You know, Inanna essentially gets Enki drunk, and when he's not himself, you know, gets him to give her all these. Both of them are stories about how technological power comes to human beings. And they involve, in both of them, a transgression of boundaries. It's clear in the Prometheus story. Works one way, the transgression of boundaries is between the gods in the Sumerian myth, and a violation of hierarchies where things that belong up here are given down here. And they seem to suggest that technology involves artifice and cunning and a certain element of deception. But May is different than fire and what seems to be given in the Prometheus story. May doesn't have a receptacle you put it in. And May is also something that it precedes the individual and is articulated in the person, but it doesn't involve, in the way the Greek myth does, this exteriorization of thought and interiorization of machine. And it suggests somehow that our knowledge of sharing and caring and dwelling and meeting both precedes and coexists with our technology in a really ambiguous way. It suggests that while we're technological beings, we're more than that. There's some other quality we are given. You know, in the Prometheus story, we have none except fire, none except the technology. But in the story of Enki and Inanna, we're more complex beings. We have more. That's all these other things that express themselves in our caring, in our ability to meet and share, and our indwelling with and among one another. And it's worth thinking about as we hurtle headlong into this world where you can have an implant that will control how you feel, where we can replace our cerebellum that handles a lot of the basic automatic responses we have with a computer, where we can displace our own thinking process with computerized processes and enhance our intelligence or operate our legs before we completely merge in a way that's possible, growingly possible for us. To ask ourselves, is the kind of myth that says we have no qualities except the technological really the most helpful myth for the future? Or would we be better served by a different kind of myth that suggests, yes, we're technological beings, but we are more than that. We have other human capacities that transcend simply that way we define who we are. So, I think that's the last slide. And I can get us out of here quickly if you want, or you can ask questions.
Thank you very much. Big questions, I think. Many questions, I think. Presentation that stirs up our minds for lots of areas. Any other questions? I say other because I have. Let me give you this for keeping, please.
What you've been showing us here has to do with what is called brain. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cerebellum and so forth. Is this a term that you would, how would you relate this notion of brain to what we call mind in English? And what would be the Greek equivalent? Is there an equivalent for mind as distinct from brain?
Sure.
In other words, what would Plato say?
That actually is a good question.
Secondly,
Mm-hmm.
you sound surprised.
No?
Secondly, whatever word we want to pick up for the Greek idea of mind, which I would suggest is different from the current view of brain, the Greeks also have a word for soul. Can you situate the notion of soul in regard to your discussion of technology and human being?
I don't know. You want to?
You go first.
Oh.
Sure.
Oh, I have this. No, well, you go first. I'd like to clarify the words. You'd be the better one to clarify the words.
Honestly, I'm not so sure about mind.
Noose.
We know that they certainly talk about brains because, not to be too graphic here, but Homer does talk about brains being
Splattered.
when people are hitting the head in combat. But, the word for soul is suke, and that is it's like most Greek words, it's very, very ambiguous. And some people, some ancient Greeks, I guess, would say something to the effect that the essence of it is, suke is the essence of what we are, who we are, And the more sort of philosophically minded, like Plato, would probably differentiate that from our physicality, our bodies, I don't remember ever reading in Plato about the mind. I could be wrong, but I don't think Plato ever talked about the mind. But he did talk about the soul, and he did talk about the soul as something that actually precedes the body. We actually exist before we're born in the great cosmos among the forms. And then we come into this body, and those of us, some of us are better at remembering the forms than others, and that determines whether we're philosopher or whatever. And then we die, and when Socrates talks about this in the various Platonic dialogues, he's not always consistent. But in the Phaedo, he seems to suggest that the soul carries on after the body. To my knowledge, that's as close as we get to any concept of a non-corporeal mentality, right? That's disconnected from the brain. I could be wrong, but I don't know
I
really
think
of any
that's...
mind, in that sense. And when they talk about dreams and things like that, which we associate with, that's usually external phenomena that's coming from the gods or something like that. But again, that's affecting the soul, perhaps, but there's no concept of the mind that I know of among the Greeks.
Clearly, we know a lot more. That's the nature of neuroscience and cognitive science. We know an enormous amount now about how the brain functions and the way it can be mapped. And when we're talking about fitting it with neurotransmitters, or we're talking about the mechanics of the brain. Now, if I were of a certain philosophical perspective, I would say that is all there is.
Yes, people do say that.
And I suspect, and it gets harder and harder, the interesting question for me is, in part, if you replace all of, is it get easier to say that's all that is when you replace the parts of the brain with computer implants and transmitters and wires and gears? Is there more? And what makes that more? And that's why actually that story of, that's why I was in part contrasting the story of Epimetheus and Prometheus with Enki and Inanna, because I think you can, again, I'm pushing you push analogy, or you push things for to hyperbole just to have an interesting discussion. I think you can read this story of Epimetheus and Prometheus as a way of saying that's all there is. You know, we're a technological being. We're created through the implant of fire as the ultimate technology. Or what the Inanna and Enki story seems to say is Me is something more. There is something besides the gears and wires of and the pure physicality of things that maybe makes our consciousness, you know, are we any different than that tree out there?
Can you find a Sanskrit analog for May?
I didn't go that far. Judy has a question.
I'd like to bring the conversation the Greeks do talk a lot about gnosis.
Yeah.
And maybe not a word for mind, but a word for knowledge.
Knowledge.
And furthermore, there is the balance with techne, arete, and that would certainly involve the idea of the soul.
Yeah.
And as you presented these various prosthetic devices, they are mechanical devices, in fact. So we might also oppose the mechanical world to the natural world. And when, who was that chess master who had to play Big Blue, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Gary Kasparov, IBM paid him to compete against Big Blue in his chess game. Well, in fact, when Kasparov had a chance to look over, as chess players do, their previous games, he did very well in the first contest. But then IBM said, well, would you come back? Because we're going to reprogram our computer. And then I think the way the story went, Kasparov just, there was, what do you call them, the tie? There was a tie, and then
Stalemate. Yeah.
a draw. But anyway, Kasparov was just so upset with the whole thing because he had no chance to prepare that he just stalked off the stage. I think IBM still paid him. But there were a lot of interesting articles after that episode about whether a mechanical device such as a computer could be as cognizant in so many ways as a human being. And most of the literature came out squarely favoring the human being because of sensitivities and all the other emotional responses that we bring to our daily lives. Then there's another interesting way this is strung together in the work of Gregory Bateson, where he has these wonderful analogies of, for example, horse and grass, where you can't really know the horse from the grass. We have horse plus grass. So in the way that we are connected with our natural world, so our life goes forward. And I thought it was also interesting in anthropogenesis and technogenesis. And when they use the word genesis, these are automatically connotative of something organic.
Yeah.
So they're both developing. And when they become more closer together, but then maybe in the other realms, such as arete, also becoming farther apart.
Yeah. I think it's a important question. A lot is happening in terms of these ways that the human and the machine are merging, and these technological prosthetic devices we have. And I don't know that we're really thinking fully about the implications of all that and what it means for being human. And one interesting way to have that conversation, that's essentially all I wanted to open up, is to look at these ancient myths, particularly myths of human origin, and begin to ask, well, how do they think about these things? They may, and is there some resource in those myths that may help us sort our way through how we address the, I think, really deep ethical issues that this kind of technology raises?
May I just have a crazy idea that just came to me? Putting prostheses or hands or, mechanical things, and your question of how much is human in this or so. Let me take the argument to the other side, meaning even now with living tissues and so forth, is my hand is what makes me a human? Let me give an example of, was it Hawkins or Dawkins, the guy
Dawkins.
who was reduced to a head, talking head only, and he was thinker and everything, but
Hawking, Stephen Hawking, yeah, the astrophysicist.
Okay,
yeah.
and he was brilliant, but he has the body was zero almost, except his mind, and he can talk and think and so forth. So does this tell us that even our physical, not mechanical, but even our bodies, is not what makes us humans?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to wait when we put a mechanical to ask the question, what part of me now is human, what's not? Because even this, which is my body, is not me, in a sense. It's not what makes me human, and I want to say.
Yeah, that's where I was starting out with that particular way of understanding Epimetheus and Prometheus. If you say we have no quality, there is nothing left in the basket for us. And the only quality that's poured into the receptacle we are is fire, which is a kind of a metaphor, at least how I'm using it, for technology. Then that's a very different picture of what it means to be human than, say, Inanna and Enki, where human exists and the technological is a piece, but it certainly isn't the whole of who we are. So I think that is the question. You know, if I have implants that operate me, who's me? Am I only that, or am I more than that? And is mind conscious? Well, this is a philosophical question of, whether Descartes thought our consciousness was located in our pineal gland. I mean, where does our consciousness of self really exist? You can't locate it in any part of you. Right?
It is within all of this, and it is outside of all of it.
Yes, it's within it, and it's outside of it.
Well, something to start thought process, thinking process after we leave. These sessions don't end when we end. Actually, it starts when we end. So thank you very much for coming. And if you have any other questions, I know that Dr. Hawkins would welcome your emails if you like. And if he doesn't, I'll receive them. Just give him a hand. Thank you very much.